Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy.
Yesterday, I was on the third floor at Guarantee. I was in the production room, and I hear yelling and screaming from in the studio. Then I hear the table pounding in the studio, and I'm going, what kind of bit is Matt doing? And then I got a text message. And then I looked at my phone and I went, oh, he's throwing a party in there because Nick Saban is leaving Tuscaloosa. It's a day we knew would eventually come. Despite what you say, you did know eventually that was going to come. And the rumors picked up this year. And, in fact, yesterday Chris Lowe breaks the news that Nick Saban is out in Tuscaloosa. And I have kind of two reactions here. One is big picture, and the other is right now. Big picture, the greatest coach in the history of college football is done. And that's a huge story. In a sport that I routinely tell you irritates me a little bit because there is no margin for error, he didn't need any margin for error. He just marched right through schedule after schedule after schedule in the toughest division in the history of the sport and churned out championships. And it was miserable to watch in Baton Rouge. Every November, watching that team come out of the tunnel or your team have to go to Tuscaloosa, it was brutal. And I'll get to that in a second. But the appreciation for the effort that was made has to lead here. But the other piece of this is that the landscape in the Southeastern Conference changed yesterday, whether or not they want to admit it in Tuscaloosa or not. And everyone feels that. Everyone feels it. I certainly felt it. Matt felt it. You heard it on the show. My dad texted me and said it was a miracle. I got 2 exclamation points out of him. I never get 2 exclamation points out of him. Said it was a miracle. I got a text from another buddy up in Shreveport. He works with his dad. They work for the same company. They were drinking scotch in their office at 4:15 on a Wednesday. This is a big deal. And I'm certain those aren't the only 2 instances of people around here celebrating basically being free. If you saw my Twitter, and if you've been listening to me for 10 years, you know I'm a huge movie guy, huge movie buff, know all the movies, seen all the movies. But I put the Shawshank gif up there. When he clears into the rain, said it took 17 years to dig through the tunnel, but we made it. And I really feel that way. That's how it feels here in Baton Rouge. He was at Bama 17 years. LSU beat him 5 times. They beat him in 2007, beat him in 10, beat him in 11, beat him in 19, and beat him in 22. 5 wins. 4 of those 5, LSU went on to win the SEC West. Of course, the one time that didn't happen was 2010. But 4 out of the 5 times you beat Alabama, you got to Atlanta. And that's mission number 1 in Baton Rouge. You lost to him in 08, 09, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21. That's 11 times you lost. Guess how many times you went to Atlanta in those years? None. You can try to tell me that this game is just another game and you make too big a deal out of the Alabama game. That's the proof. You win the game 80% of the time, you accomplish goal number 1, you get to Atlanta. You lose the game 0% of the time, you get to Atlanta. And the fact of the matter is that this program is very likely to dip. Now, whether it dips 1 peg, 2 pegs, or 8 pegs remains to be seen. And trying to draw comparisons to Nick Saban leaving Alabama is honestly not that difficult because all you can do is go to the greatest coaches in the history of collegiate athletics because that's the only comparison that works. So I started to go through those in my head and scribble out some notes, and sometimes the legend, the icon, moves on, and the program sustains itself with the next guy. Bobby Bowden, unbelievable run at Florida State, and Jimbo Fisher took over and took them to a national championship. Now, it fell apart on Jimbo at the end, I admit that, but the next guy did do a good job and got him to a national championship and won it. Got him to a playoff the next year as well. Urban Meyer left Ohio State, and Ryan Day has been pretty good. They usually go 11-0 into the Thanksgiving weekend. It's not like they've fallen off a cliff, but, again, they've lost to Michigan 3 years in a row, so there is a little bit of dip. But Ryan Day's not running into the ground at this point. Miami back in the 80s, Howard Schnellenberger got him to new heights, and they handed it off to Jimmy Johnson, and he did exceptionally well. And then they hired Dennis Erickson, and he won a national championship. And you could suggest it fell off after that. But they stacked a couple of coaches together that kept an elite-level program together. Les Miles took the baton here in Baton Rouge and did a good job. LSU was absolutely relevant. They won a national championship under Les after Nick left, and they rebuilt the thing and had another great team in 11. It took a long time for that one to fall off, but that worked. Roy Williams left Kansas, and Bill Self picked up the baton, and he made it better. It can be done. It does happen. But let me throw some other examples of high-profile, elite-level programs with iconic coaches, and then you see what happened next. Steve Spurrier left Florida. Here comes Ron Zook. Urban Meyer leaves Florida. Here comes Will Muschamp. Bob Knight left Indiana. Mike Davis took over. They've never recovered in Bloomington. Mac Brown had a pretty damn good run in Austin. Charlie Strong took over. Dean Smith, all-time great, North Carolina. He leaves. They hand it to the next guy on the bench, Bill Guthridge. That did not go so well. They hired Matt Doherty. That was a disaster. North Carolina basketball had the guy. It falls off. Pete Carroll leaves USC after a run. I thought they'd never lose again when I was in high school and college. Lane Kiffin and Clay Helton were the next two up. They're still trying to recapture that. It wasn't a Nick Saban-esque run, but Phil Fulmer was unbelievable in Knoxville. At the top of the sport, trying to get over the hump against Spurrier, who was crushing everybody. But Fulmer got Peyton Manning, and they were great, and they were a top-5 team, and they finally won it with T. Martin, and then he had a great run there, and it ended. Lane Kiffin, Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, like, you know the story. I'm not here predicting the absolute demise of Alabama football. They're going to sink their resources into a coach that probably looks like a great hire on paper. Doesn't sound like it's going to be Dan Lanning. I don't know if it's Dabo Swinney, which is incredible on paper. I don't know who they're going to hire. But the very likelihood is that this program takes a step back and is good. Oklahoma's good. LSU's good. Clemson's good right now. Oregon's good. They're not going to be the death machine they were for a decade and a half with the next guy. I'm confident in saying that. If I'm wrong, I'll stand up here and I'll probably start crying and I'll say I'm wrong. But that's the way I feel about this. I felt this way for 10 years, knowing I know what Alabama has become. I know what this looks like. They never lose 2 games in any season ever. They're in the playoff every year. They're winning a national championship every other year. This will end at some point, and the next guy is not going to be able to live up to this, and now we're there. I went through all those national examples, sparing sports and all that, and didn't even go to the one that was right down the road from where I am right now. Skip Bertman turned over the keys to Smoke Laval. And they got to Omaha twice, but it fell off a cliff. I'd be shocked if Alabama football has what happened to LSU post-national championship. If that happens, I'll be beyond shocked. I'm just telling you, I think they become another good program. Because to suggest anything else would be completely disrespectful to what Nick Saban did in Tuscaloosa. That was unbelievable. And I was having this discussion with somebody yesterday, and they said, well, Kirby Smart's there. Wait a second. He won 2 and then didn't get into the playoff this year, and that schedule wasn't exactly murderer's row. Kirby may win 6. You have to get 4 more, and he's young, and maybe he will. I'm betting against it. There was a time where you thought Clemson was invincible too. Running through the ACC, beating Alabama a couple times, played Joe Burrow and that crew to a competitive game for 2.5 quarters. How they doing? In this era of transfer portal, NIL, I mean, the whole world is flipped upside down. Sustaining what Nick Saban just did is going to be next to impossible. Now, unfortunately for us in Baton Rouge, the rules just changed, and you're not in a division with Alabama anymore. Because that was really the thing. That's the lead off of my segment there. Where I'm going, well, you had to beat them to get to Atlanta. Now, you may play them, you may not, and you're certainly not in the same division as them. It's just one big conference. But yesterday was a monumental day in the sport of college football, and it felt that way to those of us who follow it very, very closely.
Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.